Curran Holdman from the J2C show. Welcome in everybody to the Sports Update. And we got a college football edition, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're ready for this week. The big thing now, my Oregon State Beavers, they started off on a rough game last Saturday against Colorado State. One that you know what? It was a good game for them to humble them a little bit. Now, not in the humbling sense that they were really good going into this game. They came off a 5-win season or a 4-win season last year, but they did beat Oregon. That was the main thing. That was our game, as we did get to beat Oregon in Civil War, and so there's a lot of hype coming off that momentum, I guess you would say, into the off season. A good recruiting class, one of the best recruiting classes Oregon State's had in a while, but they came into Colorado State, and Colorado State it was really that second half. The first half was close. Both teams going back and forth. Defenses struggling a little bit. Ryan Nall had a 75-yard touchdown run for Oregon State, and we were thinking, okay, we got Ryan Nall going, and then this game's going to be kind of us. We started to take over on defense a little bit. We had an interception. We were starting to get everything going, and then Colorado State fired back. And Colorado State opened up a new stadium, beautiful stadium, almost a full house there, big game for them, and they just played their asses off. I mean, they really went for it. And Oregon State in the second half, first half it was close. They were getting momentum. They came up. They should have had a touchdown at the end of the first half. They they did not call the reverse. I mean, it was clear. Everybody on TV was calling it was a touchdown. I was calling it a touchdown. And, I mean, when you have 99% of everybody at the game and reviewing it saying it's a touchdown and it's not a touchdown, it's a little eerie because that was a lot of momentum on that play. Colorado State got the hold, gave Oregon State the field goal, but we wanted the touchdown. We wanted to get some kind of momentum going into it, and that would have been big for us because that would have carried on to the second half. But Colorado State actually got the momentum over that play, and they took off in the second half. Oregon State just had a problem on defense, a lot of defensive personnel mismatches, giving up big plays on the ground through the air to Colorado State. And Colorado State's a good team. They had 7 wins the year before, made it to a bowl game, and they're starting to rebuild that program into a pretty good force there in the Mountain West Conference. So hands down to Colorado State, they played their asses off. They just did, and Gary Anderson said that as well. I mean, you got to be able to play all 4 quarters. And Oregon State played the first half, had a couple of miscues, couple of blown opportunities to get some big points and to get a bigger lead going into halftime, and that hurt them. Not able to capitalize on those turnovers in the first half and give them a chance to build some momentum, especially on the road. That's the best way to win a road game, is you got to take the home crowd out of it. That's really what it's down to. If you let the home team get some momentum and build off the crowd, I mean, it's a whole different story. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, you can be Alabama, and if you start playing shitty in the first half and you let the home and you're on the road and you let a smaller team get into it and really build off that and start playing out of their minds, I mean, it could be a whole different game very quickly. So it doesn't matter who you are. You got to be able to capitalize on turnovers, especially when you're on the road, and quiet the crowd. That's where it comes down to, and Oregon State just had a hard time doing that. So we're hoping they get a better they have a better matchup this weekend. They play Portland State at 11 a.m. So that'll be a good game for Oregon State to kind of, we got our asses handed to us in that second half, and Colorado State embarrassed us. And that was the exact word that Gary Anderson said about Oregon State, embarrassing. And it really was. I mean, it was hard to watch that second half because so many misplays, missed opportunities. I mean, Jake Luton, hell of a quarterback, hell of an arm, very good player. And he did well. I mean, he was playing really well in that first half. He was hitting his targets. He hit 9 receivers for catches, so that was always good to see the ball spreading around the offense, hitting different targets. But, I mean, you had also a couple of interceptions. Now, a couple of them weren't his fault. They were either a receiver tipped it in the air right to a defender, or a receiver made the wrong cut. I mean, so it wasn't completely his fault, but you know what? As a whole, it looks like an interception's an interception. It doesn't matter who threw it and whoever put it up. It still results to the team. So you can't think of it as, oh, it wasn't my fault. You got to think of it, okay, what do we got to do? We got to come out and we got to make sure we execute better. We execute our routes. We got to get the ball into our receiver hands and not make it so it's easy for the defender to pick it off. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So we'll see if they make the adjustments. Again, the favorable matchup against Portland State, but in the past, Oregon State's always had trouble with some of these smaller teams, and that's kind of the plague with Oregon State. And being a Beavers fan forever, I've been through it. I've seen it all. Oregon State, this is a motto we kind of go by with the Beavers, is that Beavers play up to a better team. They really do. When they play like USC and even Oregon, and sometimes when they play against a tougher matchup, they usually rise to the occasion and they can hang with them. But with that mentality, sometimes when they play against teams they should beat, like Washington State a couple of years ago when they were like a 40-point favorite, and they lose by 40 points to Washington State, and this was kind of I think this was either the first or second year of Mike Leach when he was rebuilding that program, and Washington State's a great program now. I mean, they really become one of the top teams in the Pac-12. But when you're a 40-point favorite, you got to come out and execute, especially on your home turf and on Father's Weekend. I mean, there's so much riding on that game, and you don't want to go out and lay a big goose egg, which they did. So Oregon State, they sometimes they play down to the teams they play against, and that's scary at times, especially in these first couple games, because if you lose 2 out of 3 your opening games against teams that are like pretty much warm-up games, then your whole season's fucked. It really is. So you got to be able to capitalize on those missed opportunities, and you got to play. If you're favored by 40 points, you got to play like you're favored by 40 points. You just got to come out and execute. Now it's harder said than done, or it's harder done than said, but you still got to do it. I mean, when you have the athletes, and I think Gary Anderson has been doing a good job turning this program around. He really had to come in with a scratch plate. I mean, he just had so much. He's again another young team. But he did a good job recruiting some junior college players last year, some top junior college players. And that helps the program because they've had experience. And you even see that with Lutton. He made some good throws, some really tough throws. And so he's still transitioning in from the junior college defenses to a Division I defense. So that's still in there. But I think he's getting it. He had over 300 yards, but you got to be able to execute without turning the ball over, and that's what killed Oregon State was turnovers. They just had way too many. And when you turn over the ball, not only are you giving the other team an opportunity to score, but you're also limiting your chances to score. And so with that, Oregon State needs to tune it up, but I think they're going to do a good job against Portland State. Hopefully it'll be a game that we saw Colorado State that kind of put us in our spot, and saying we need to come out and play no matter who it is. So that's the mentality they've got to go into this game, and they got to take care of business against Portland State, especially as their home opener. They need to get it done. That's really it. I'm looking forward to that game just to see, how can we bounce back. When it comes to college football, it's about to bounce back. You can win 4 games in a row and then lose one more game, a tough game. How do you respond to that? How do you take that and actually use that as motivation for the next game, or use it as a chance to improve your game going forwards? So, and one thing in sports I've known for a long time, I've been following sports forever, ever since I was a baby. But the one thing in sports that really stands out to me is that you've got to be able to take the losses. The losses are more important than the wins. And by that I mean is you learn so much more from your losses than your wins, because when you lose, it shows you, what do I need to get better? What can I do to perform better the next time? What areas do my team or myself, as if it's an individual sport, where do I need to make the adjustment? And the best teams in college football or in any sports, they've had their bumps, they've had their bruises, but they've made those adjustments to improve. Golden State, talking about NBA for a little bit, or Golden State Warriors, same thing. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, they didn't have a 60-win team when they came into their rookie seasons. They just didn't. or Draymond Green even when he came in. They took losses. I mean, Golden State, when they were getting into their Mark Jackson a couple of years ago, they were getting bounced out of the playoffs in the first or second round. They weren't this juggernaut of a team even before signing Kevin Durant. But what they did is they took those losses and it showed them, okay, where do we need to improve? I mean, that's really the point here is you take your losses and they can teach you so much more than your wins, because when you're winning, then you're like, all right, my game plan's working, and if we win, then there's not much more than I can look at in the game to improve. Now, that might not be completely accurate. I mean, you can still always go back to the game film, and when you win, you can say, like, okay, what do I need to do better? Because, we won, but we barely won. And if this play wouldn't have worked out for us, which it shouldn't have, then we were screwed. So, I mean, but losses, they highlight that. They pop it out more. So you can see where was this missed coverage? This hole was where I should have been, but I didn't follow the play, or I didn't execute it where it should have been, and stuff like that. That's the huge thing we hear with sports. In Oregon State, I think they're going to look at film, and I think Gary Anderson's going to really point that out. And a good, stern coach that really works on his players and really good with his players on getting them. And so I was watching his press conference from Monday, and that's the thing he did. It's like, you know what? We took the loss. It was embarrassing. It was hard for us, but we came in and we're like, okay, first game of the season, it shows us what we need to work on, what we need to improve on, where in the game where we're at, and you know what? We've got another shot game next year. Or not next year, but next week. We've got to take that, throw it in the pass, use clips of it to help us prepare ourselves for next week. And I think they're going to do it. So Oregon State, that's the game I'm looking forward to, just to see how they bounce back. But we also got some big games this weekend, as we've got the big matchup, and that's number 1 versus number 3, Florida State and Alabama down in Atlanta at the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And that's going to be a big game, not only for the sake it's 1 versus 3 in the first week, but for our college football bowl playoff series. This game could be big, because you lose this game. Now, I don't think they're going to be as harsh as they if for the team that loses this game, because again, it's 1 versus 3, probably one of the toughest matchups, and it's the first week. So the good thing about it being the first week is you have all season. If you go undefeated, if you lose this game, then go undefeated the rest of the season in a tough conference, then you'll be favorable, a one-loss team in a tough ACC or SEC conference, and then be able to take care of business throughout the season. You'll be back in the playoff bowl picture. You just will. I mean, it's hard to go undefeated here. Only certain teams, Alabama, they're always really good, but Florida State's really good as well. So two deep teams. Again, that's at 5 o'clock, and I believe Saturday Game Day is back, ESPN Game Day. So that's where they'll be. But that's a game I'm looking forward to. In other games, we've got some earlier games. Friday night, Washington Huskies, they travel down to Rutgers, a tough game. They were able to take care of Rutgers last year pretty easily, but we'll see. Because Washington, again, they lost some key players in the draft, but they have some key players coming back, and so they're a really top team, the top 8, number 8 here in the country. So I'm looking forward to that game, see how they take care of business. Utah State at Wisconsin. Utah State's been a tough team here in the last couple of years, and they play Wisconsin. Wisconsin, always tough, physical, defensive team, and then they've got that ground and pound game on offense that can wear teams out, and at Wisconsin, so I'm looking forward to that one. Other than that, there's a few games. Again, the first week, there's a couple big names, but then the rest of them are usually double A, NCAA double A versus a big team, kind of the warm-up, tune-up games. It's just usual as it is. But Oregon, they host Southern Utah. We'll see what the new Oregon team looks like under Willie Taggart. That's going to be a fun one to watch. See if Willie Taggart's able to bring back the Ducks to that speedy offense that they've known for. The Ducks having an off year last year. Again, I mean, it was a rough season for Duck fans, and they actually got a taste of what it's like to be a Beavers fans for a while, because they're known to having those big teams always competing for the Pac-12 North. Last year, they were on Beaver status. I mean, I think Beavers are in the right way, and I think Ducks are in the right way. I really like Willie Taggart. I mean, he is a tough coach, a tough, really good recruiting coach, but he also likes to have. He's also good with his players. He's got that charisma that really brings out when he's talking to players, talking to media. I mean, he's a really fun guy to listen to, and I was listening to a couple of his press conferences the last couple of days, and I mean, I really just like the guy. I'm not a Ducks fan. I've grown up black and orange my whole life. But, I really like Willie Taggart. I think he's going to be a really good addition to Oregon, and I think he will be the guy that, if the Oregon program can be back to where it was in the last couple of years, I think he's going to be the person to do it. And he's already shown that in the recruiting classes, and who's the talent he can bring in. He's a really good guy at that. So I think he's the guy to rebuild that program and put them back in a national spotlight. I really think so. But we got a lot of big games this weekend. I'm excited for college football. I mean, I really am. It's going to be a lot of fun. These are my favorite Saturdays. Waking up really early, turning on game day. I mean, I've been watching game day ever since I was, in grade school. I mean, out living in the country where I did in Oregon, a lot of people during October, late, September, October, fall, are Saturday mornings, they like to go out and hunt. I mean, really, my brothers all did that. They love to go out, shoot guns, get out real early, go hunting. Doesn't matter what kind of animal it's in season. But me, on the other hand, I'm not so much of a hunter, but what I did on Saturdays, I was so diehard, and waking up at the crack of 5 a.m., get out, get my seat on the couch or the chair or wherever I could, had a little rubber football or anything like that. I mean, I was just so addicted. I'm so addicted to sports, and I think it's even grown now to a super addiction of sports. I mean, it's what I like to do best. One thing that I'm super in following and doing that. But I mean, ever since a young age, I woke up Saturday morning, turn on ESPN, Sports Center in the morning, and then let that trickle into the morning game day with Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, Fowler. I mean, all the guys. Now Reese Davis is in it. I mean, it's just one of my favorite things to watch, and I just love Saturday mornings for football. I mean, that's my daily routine, and that's a routine I've stuck to for the last, probably 15 years. Since I was about seven or six. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do. It really is. So I'm looking forward to it. College football is back. I mean, that's all I got to say. I mean, college football is here. I'm excited. NFL's running into it in a couple of weeks. NFL season. We had our draft, and so it was a lot of fun. But you know what? College football's still my number one. It really is. So I'm looking forward to this weekend. Hope you guys are too. We'll have another Sports Update sometime really soon. And so this is Curran Holdman from the J2C show. We'll see you guys next time.